It's Monday morning, and during the midst of this COVID-19 crisis, we've leaned heavily on our good friend, Dr. Dennis Norem from Mercy Health, who's joined us each Monday with just kind of an overview and a look at some of the things in particular that maybe you want to know about. Dr. Norem, good morning.
Good morning to you guys.
How you doing this morning?
I'm doing well, hanging in there.
Yeah, we had that knee rehab well?
It's doing pretty well. Took a nice long walk this weekend.
Nice.
That was refreshing.
Yeah.
Obviously not yesterday. That was not much of a day.
No, that might not have been real refreshing at all. Hey, I'm looking at a piece out of the Wall Street Journal this morning saying mysterious new symptoms are appearing in the coronavirus pandemic. I don't know how much more. I mean, we've heard about COVID toe. We've heard about this. We've heard about that. We've heard about some new things. But apparently now there's some other things that are popping up that at least has some people's attention, such as oxygen levels in blood.
Well, yes, and that's been a huge issue. As you probably know, the issue of having to put people on ventilators. Unfortunately, what we've found is that 80 to 90% of patients who end up on a ventilator do not ever come off and unfortunately die. So there's been a lot of interest in trying to assess that very early on and try to do something to improve those oxygen levels prior to having to put a person on a ventilator. Unfortunately, the physiology of the ventilator seems to almost aggravate the effects of the disease.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, this will help, but at the same time, this will hurt.
Right. If we could maintain oxygenation by other means without having to put the ventilator on, it seems that people outcomes are better. So there's interest in high-flow oxygen, using things like BiPAP, which is kind of like a CPAP machine that we use for people with sleep apnea. That gives increased oxygen levels. Another thing that's being looked at, which I think might have some real value, is something called hyperbaric oxygen. That's where you put you in a pressurized tank and give you very high levels of oxygen in your system. And people may be familiar with that when divers get the bends and they have to be put in these tanks called hyperbaric oxygen tanks.
I remember when Michael Jackson made news in the 80s with purchasing his own hyperbaric chamber.
Yeah, there are people out there, seems to be the Hollywood types and athletes. Actually, some athletes do hyperbaric treatments of their own. It's debatable whether that has an effect on performance, but it may promote and certainly promotes more rapid healing if you can increase oxygen to the tissues. So I think that holds some real promise as we move forward.
This hyperbaric oxygen, we've talked about Michael Jackson and high-level performers or athletes using it. That leads me to believe it's not a cheap treatment. Is this something that would be available to the masses if it proved beneficial?
It's going to need a lot of study, and there's a lot of logistic issues with treating COVID patients with hyperbaric oxygen, but I know there's a couple of studies. Would it be available to the masses? Just like everything else, availability would be an issue. Like ventilators, there are only so many tanks in the country, and if this turned out to be something that was very helpful, we don't have near enough equipment to handle that demand.
Yeah, and I would think hyperbaric chambers, one, aren't cheap, and two, probably at the best of times are not plentiful.
No, and there's a lot of training and issues around that, and not the least of which is people are using for other purposes, and you'd have to go through the whole sterilization protocols and that. But again, maybe another option that would improve the outcome in people because of this dramatic drop in oxygen levels, which apparently occurs very early on and people are not aware of it.
Yeah, the Wall Street Journal report talked about doctors being somewhat amazed that patients are coming in and talkative and seemingly upbeat and things are going on. Then they do that check of the oxygen in the blood and go, wow, that's really low.
Yes. And the physiology of that is not clear, but it does kind of make sense since that virus attacks in the lung tissue and affects respiration. And obviously that's one of the, if not the major reason that people die, along with a couple other things, which blood clots have gotten a lot of interest lately. And I think the protocol now is to generally treat sick patients with blood thinners because they've had so many problems with blood clots.
All right.
Doctor, some of the other countries that caught this the same time that we did seem to be faring a little bit better than us. We've talked about testing was maybe a little bit more rampant to start with. The other thing we're hearing a lot now is a lot of these countries are much quicker and more willing to adapt to wearing masks and face coverings all the time. Do you see that just if we're not going to get testing to where we need it, are face masks our best way to get out of this relatively quickly?
Well, I think we're back to face masks, distancing, hand washing, common sense. The testing is important, obviously, and we think that as we move on, some of this contact tracing would be wonderful. If we could do really good contact tracing, that would also be a key. But frankly, I don't.
Real quick, I want to interrupt you. We hear contact tracing a lot. I'm vaguely familiar with what it means. How does that work in practice, contact tracing?
Well, a person is diagnosed. Somebody has to contact them, or they contact someone who's responsible to take the information to say, who have you been in contact with within the period of time where you may have infected other people. So you give those names to people. Typically in the past, that's been the health department with sexually transmitted diseases. The health department people would contact those people who you've come in contact with and have them tested. So you would try to contain the spread of whatever infection you're tracing, and you could potentially isolate people and stop the spread beyond the initial contact. Unfortunately, I don't think we have the structure in this country to do that kind of massive contact tracing, although many places, I think New York is talking about hiring people to do this. This would be very effective if we could pull it off.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a huge undertaking. That's going to take a lot of tech and a lot of people in order to pull that off.
Have other countries successfully used contact tracing to squash the curve?
I think there has been. It's hard to know what they've done in China, but I think they've done that, and I think South Korea has been doing contact tracing. But those countries are structured a little different than ours, and people are a little more willing to participate. So that does make a difference.
It does. Here's a question that deals with now and in the future as well. I'm reading story after story this morning about people who had gone to see mom, who's in an extended care facility, a nursing home of some sort, and of course denied entry. Nobody can get in. No hug for mom. No contact on Mother's Day, and all that. And how going forward from this, even when we put this behind us, and maybe even let's say produce a vaccine that works remarkably well, the setup for long-term care homes and nursing facilities is never going to go back to the way it was.
Not for the foreseeable future. And unfortunately, my mom is in a facility here in town, and she's doing well. She's independent, but I couldn't have any face-to-face contact. I can only drop off the flowers and call her on the phone, and that's as much as you can do.
And with the way the flu hits in many other years, that kind of seems like a smart move to run during regular flu season too.
Well, that's been traditionally during the bad flu seasons when we limit visitors in the hospital or stop visitors in the hospital during the peak of flu season. Typically, the long-term care facilities have done the same thing. And it just makes sense because, as you can see, where the concentrated deaths are, typically it's been long-term care facilities across the country.
When you say for the foreseeable future, are you talking about 18 months? Are we talking about 5 years? Are we talking about as far as we can see right now?
I think as far as anybody can see, we're looking at months, 6, 7, 8 months. We need to get through the next so-called second wave period to really know what this is going to involve. And that's probably going to occur sometime in the fall or early winter.
You know, we talk a lot about obviously the physical aspects of this and what it does and trying to avoid, finding yourself sick. But the other thing to consider, too, and, a lot of ink has been spilled on this topic is the people's moods, the mental health angle on things. What are you and your colleagues discussing when it comes to that?
That's interesting. Not a lot of discussion, except to say that our employer, and I think most of the facilities, healthcare systems in town are doing the same thing. We've received emails regarding this issue because we're all concerned about the provider's mental health. So there are some resources for us to access some mental health counseling and things. As far as the public, I think you can see it spilling over the demonstrations across the country. People are obviously frustrated. And we're all getting to the point where we want to get out of the house and get back to doing things. It's a difficult issue to know what can you do to ameliorate some of this mental health frustration.
Speaking of getting out and doing stuff, I saw a report the other day that a vitamin D deficiency is exacerbating some of these COVID-19 symptoms. That vitamin D, if I'm not mistaken, you get that from the sun, correct? Or it's one of the places to get it? So getting people out of the house, getting into the sun, is that a beneficial thing to help make sure you're not as sick as you can be?
Or is it a supplement thing?
Well, I think it's both. In the Midwest, when we have these long winters, we do see more vitamin D deficiency, and I think vitamin D is an important supplement. The other related issue is clearly ultraviolet rays kill the virus, so probably getting out in the sun serves a couple purposes. Makes you feel better, improves your vitamin D, and probably has a good effect to reduce the virus.
And what a double or triple whammy it is for people who have seasonal affect disorder at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And the timing of this virus really bad because late winter, we see as providers a lot of increased depression anyway. So this really kind of hit that time period. And unfortunately, people, aren't coming to the office. So a lot of people are at home suffering with depression, anxiety issues. And again, I don't have any good advice except to say, try to be in contact with your friends, talk to other people. If you can get out and get a little exercise, that can be very helpful.
I see some elective surgeries or some, non-essential surgeries are kind of taking place. As far as just, run-of-the-mill, non-corona COVID-19 pains, aches, and, whatever going on with your body, should we start going back to the doctor more regularly, or should we never stop in the beginning? How are you guys handling taking in patients right now?
Well, patients are screened by office staff, so obviously call your physician's office because, again, we don't want anybody coming who might have COVID-19 actively. And we can get testing now. That's fairly easy to get some drive-through testing, and turnaround time is down to about 2 days, thank goodness. So if you have issues, call your physician's office and talk to the staff about how that should be handled. Some doctors are doing different things. If the patient's comfortable and it's something that you can't do over the phone or through video, certainly we are seeing patients to evaluate symptoms.
And the thing that's been intriguing about all of that is because my daughter is still at home recovering from the severe liver injury, and her conferences with her specialist were face-to-face up until they weren't. And now they are, but it's all via video chat.
Yes, and I think in situations like your daughter, there's a lot of information that's already been obtained, and probably the face-to-face is certainly adequate, and certainly the doctors can order follow-up testing and have her come in and get the blood testing and look at the results. So that probably works pretty well. However, there are a lot of people out there, like you said, have an ache or a pain or a belly pain that just started and it's been going for 2 weeks. it's hard to evaluate that over a video. In that you want to check them out, you want to get put your hands on them and check their belly, and you just can't do that with a video and a phone call.
No. So, but the bottom line, if you were one of those people who were having that pain that you talked about, you shouldn't just sit there and deal with it. You should make the phone call.
Absolutely, because we're seeing this concern about the excess deaths we talked about. People are not seeking care for things they probably should, and they're trying to sort out. A lot of these excess deaths are probably things that normally patients would have come in and be evaluated for.
And that's a tough scenario. That's a very tough scenario. We're seeing it played out from coast to coast. Well, unfortunately, that's going to run us out of time. Dr. Norem, as always, we've appreciated you being with us throughout all of this. And if you're willing to continue with us on Mondays, we would be delighted to talk to you again next week.
I'd be glad to, guys.
Outstanding. Thanks for your time.
You're welcome. Stay safe.